Changing the Conversation About Liberal Arts. This is hosted by the Malone Honors Program junior class. And as a part of the honors program, we have a series of requirements we have to fulfill to graduate with honors. And during our time here, we have a specific course that we must take each year, culminating with a senior honors thesis it's a huge research project that we create and then defend. And this is the junior class, junior colloquium. And so part of our requirement is to stage a campus event our junior year, and this is ours. We developed this idea through a book we read the first semester called Jesus Christ, Life of the Mind by Mark Knoll, and as well as some other readings. And in this we talked about education today and how it is viewed by society as a whole. And we talked about how some people view education as simply a means to an end. You go to college to be prepared for a job, to work, to gain money, and so forth. And we are challenging that tonight by saying that there's value in learning for the sake of learning, and finding enjoyment in learning about different topics just for the sake of having them better yourselves. And so tonight we've asked a panel of different faculty members and peers who are in different fields of study, which are general education requirements here at Malone, to come speak to you about why they love the area of study that they study here at Malone. And so tonight we're just going to invite each faculty member and peer up to give a presentation about their area of study. And the first professor who will speak to us tonight is Dr. Rogers, and she is a professor of biology here at Malone. So please help me welcome Dr. Rogers.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Right? I was looking over this email that I got, and I'm supposed to talk to you why I love my field of study. And I'll mention that a little bit, but I'd also like to mention why I love general education and what that has done in my life. Not sure when my love of science actually began. I remember an incident when I was around 13 years old. I was babysitting for a surgeon who lived in my neighborhood. Not the surgeon, his children, sorry. I was babysitting for a surgeon's children. And, you know, I'm pretty old, so that was back in the days we didn't have cell phones, you didn't have pagers. And so he and his wife had gone out to dinner, and I was at home with the children, and I get a call from the hospital. And they said, you know, we need to get a hold of Dr. Pasquale because there's an emergency appendectomy. Can you take that message? And they realized I was fairly young, and so I said, yeah, I think so. And he said, okay. And he said appendectomy, and so I sounded it out, spelled it back to him. He was pretty impressed. I thought, okay, I got the science thing down. All right. So, but I think that, you know, so I always had a great love of medicine. I think I started reading his book because I spent a lot of time taking care of his children. And I remember reading a book called The Century of the Surgeon, and it had all these really gory things that happened to people in surgery in the, 18th and 19th century. Pretty much went to a hospital to die in that, period of our history. So I kept reading that. I didn't seem to be daunted by that, so I went on to pursue. But I think, in high school, I loved my biology class, and then Dr. Goff would actually be surprised to hear me say this, but I think chemistry was the thing that really got my interest in high school. But I continued to love science and love medicine. But I wanted to read you a quote that I found later on in life, and realized that I'd had this happen in my life, and I'll explain it in a minute. Einstein said, "The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysterious. It's the source of all true art and science. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand in awe, is as good as dead." His eyes are closed. So I've been very blessed, and I've shared this recently with some other people, with great teachers in my life. But I think the most important teacher was my father, who wasn't a teacher at all. He actually was a printer, and that's how I learned to read upside down and backwards. He was always set and type, and I was reading, I could read books either way. But my dad was convinced that we lived in a wonderful, awesome country. And so every summer, he'd throw us in the car, and many summers when I was younger, we actually slept in the back of our car. And he would drive us on these huge, big circles of the west or the south. And I remember as a young child, child, standing at the rim of the Grand Canyon, being totally awestruck. But the thing that my dad also, we didn't just go and look at it, because I remember one time standing at the Grand Canyon, some woman pulled up in her car, through the park, ran down to the observation scene. She looks over, goes, oh my, runs back and gets her car and rides away. Okay? Which is kind of, the way a lot of American tourists look at things. But my dad always made sure that we went down to the visitor center so that we understood. And all the national parks we went to, I've actually been to almost 50 national parks. So we always had to go down to the visitor center and read what was going on. I remember one young boy, again, this was at the Grand Canyon. For some reason, I remember the things at the Grand Canyon. He and his mom were standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, and he turned to her and said, how did this get here? And she said, well, I think about 200 years ago, a meteorite came streaking through here. And I turned to my dad and I said, I don't think they've been to the visitor center yet, have they? So my dad continued. So even though I had this love of science, I remember going, and this idea of learning to pay attention to what is around you and to be awed by God's creation. I remember being at the Hoover Dam, and this was back in the days that you could actually go on tours down into the dam. And I remember taking my little notebook, because I was really nerdy, and writing down the number of pounds per square inch on every bit of the Hoover Dam. So I had these little notebooks that I took everywhere. But what that created in me was this absolute love of learning. Okay? Even though science ended up being the field that I focused in and that I still really, really love and I'm still awestruck by, that general education that I had, that my dad exposed us, we, as an early age, we would stop along Indian reservations when we were out west. And I remember my younger brother, he was really into the Fantastic Four comic books at the time. And he would give those to the little Indian boys, or they would trade trinkets with him. And I remember one time, I'd already gone back to the car, and I turned around and looked, and here came my younger brother, Michael, with no shoes on. He had found out that the young Indian boy had no shoes, and he left them with him. So, we had all these wonderful adventures that really stimulated. And it's interesting, my younger brother, I've ended up in science and medicine. But my younger brother, Michael, was a forest ranger for a while, and then he was in education, but he's now the chief planner for the Tohono Indian tribe outside of Tucson, Arizona. So all of those beautiful things that our father, exposed us to at a young age were really wonderful. So science, yes, I love it. What can it do for you? I love science because it helps me understand how my body works. I think, you as a non-science major, those of you who are, science can help you understand the world and again, allow you to be more awestruck by it when you begin to understand how the things work together. I was blessed with exceptional teachers, as I mentioned already, and I think because of what my dad did in taking us around, and I had a math teacher in high school who actually taught three generations in some families. And Mr. Rainey was kind of an eccentric guy. He wore this green visor, this green plastic visor, and he rode his bike all around town. But it was really wonderful. And I remember one day going into senior math class, and our assignment for the day was to write a short note to a friend using only homophones. That was our math assignment for the day. So I was really blessed, all through life with people who loved learning, and putting all those pieces together to make a complete picture. And so they inspired me to not be a spectator, to sit on the sideline, to get involved with that, to be observant, and to be involved in